Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Tuesday, December 16th, 2025. I'm Errol Lewis. Mayor Eric Adams stood with key members of his administration earlier today to highlight the accomplishments made on behalf of New Yorkers during his 4 years in office. Our Ayanna Harry was inside City Hall for the mayor's farewell speech and has the details on a time capsule that Adams buried today. Good evening, Ayanna.
Good evening, Errol. It's the end of an administration. A chapter of the city's political history is now coming to an end. Mayor Eric Adams acknowledged he wasn't always liked by everyone, but says after 4 years of his leadership, this is a stronger New York City. He stepped into City Hall's rotunda to a hip-hop soundtrack. All the way up until the end of his administration, Mayor Eric Adams led the city his way, with a style steeped in swagger.
There will always be haters, and our haters will be our waiters.
During an address to New Yorkers marking the end of his time in office, Adams said it was also time to set the record straight.
Talk about the first mayor being indicted, but damn it, don't miss the other first that this mayor has been able to accomplish.
While City Hall headlines over the last 4 years largely focused on scandals, resignations, and indictments, Tuesday Adams chose to focus on accomplishments, managing the asylum seeker crisis, boosting reading scores, and passing the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity plan aimed at easing the city's housing crisis.
We cannot control the price of bread, but darn it, we put bread back in the pockets of working class people.
Adams also said thank you to the team of deputy mayors who stood by him until the end, inviting each to add an item to an Adams administration time capsule. The deputy mayors chose an example of an asylum seeker ID card, a graduation tassel, and even
a mini Staten Island ferry. Cute, right?
Symbols of 4 years of the city's political history buried steps away from City Hall. And while the mayor has not said what's next for him after leaving office, New York One has learned the mayor is now headed on a personal trip to Mexico. For Eric Adams, this is mission accomplished.
4 years later, I can say with confidence, New York City has never stood stronger.
That time capsule is set to be unburied and opened back up in 10 years. And with the mayor now headed on another international trip, what we saw today may very well have been the final Eric Adams press conference from City Hall, Errol.
Is this trip, you suggested that it's personal, meaning the taxpayers were not paying for this one?
That means that taxpayers will not be paying for this one, but that also means that there will be less information and less transparency in terms of where exactly in Mexico the mayor is going and how he'll be spending his time and who he'll be meeting with.
Do we know if he'll be back anytime during the remainder of his time in office?
It's unclear. There is some reporting outside of what we've been able to confirm that perhaps after Mexico, he could be going on to Europe. So, you know, the mayor has also been asked whether or not he's going to attend the inauguration of the next mayor. I don't think he's given a clear answer on that yet. So, yeah, he may be gone for a little bit of time.
Yeah, it almost seems like he's checked out a little bit. It's not like everything is running perfectly smoothly here in the city.
Yeah, but today the mayor basically said the city is stronger and better than where it was 4 years ago. You know, when he first took office, the city was still recovering after the COVID-19 pandemic. And so the mayor said, I did my job, I'm ready to leave office, and that's what I'm doing.
Okay, thanks very much, Ayanna. Meanwhile, Governor Kathy Hochul is heading into the new year with a commanding lead for re-election over her Republican rivals. That's according to a new poll by Siena University. New York State voters also weighed in on affordability issues. Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani was another question that was asked about, and much more. Our Dan Rivoli breaks down the results of the poll here now. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Errol. An early Christmas gift for Governor Kathy Hochul, a new poll showing a commanding lead over her likely Republican opponents, as well as a Democratic primary challenge from her own lieutenant governor. In both those races showing big double-digit leads. Voters around the state were also optimistic about Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani coming into office and some of the policies he ran on here in the city. It could be a happy new year for Governor Kathy Hochul, a poll showing her way ahead of her Republican rivals. For her 2026 re-election campaign, Hochul leads Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik by 19 percentage points, with 20% undecided, according to a Siena University poll, a similar spread from last month's survey. Against Republican Bruce Blakeman, the Nassau County executive, Hochul leads by 25 points. Stephen Greenberg is the Siena pollster.
We're seeing party hold to form.
That means Democrats, who outnumber Republicans, are sticking by Hochul, but keep an eye on independents.
Independents, at the moment, leaning toward Hochul, which is an interesting development. One poll does not a trend make, but for the last several years, independents in New York had been leaning a little bit more on the Republican side.
Hochul's campaign responded, Governor Hochul is hard at work driving down New Yorkers' costs, investing in public safety, and standing up to Donald Trump when his administration targets the state. Elise Stefanik and Bruce Blakeman are focused on keeping Trump happy and helping him jack up New Yorkers' costs with expensive tariffs, and voters are seeing that clearly. Yet, New Yorkers are showing mixed feelings about the state of the state. Asked where New York stands as a place to live, raise a family, and be successful, 19% thought New York was doing better than other states. 30% said it was keeping pace, while 45% said New York is falling behind. And on the main campaign theme for 2026, affordability, more voters thought Hochul or Stefanik would be unsuccessful in making life more affordable for New Yorkers. Siena also polled New Yorkers statewide on some of Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani's marquee campaign promises, like raising taxes on high earners to pay for free childcare, 65% to 27% in support.
Here we have an example where we told people there's a service, and here's how you could pay for the service. Do you want that? And New Yorkers overwhelmingly say yes.
And state voters think Mamdani's election will be good for the city, 49% to 32%.
Well, I think he's got a honeymoon going right now. I don't know if it'll last beyond the inaugural on January 1st.
And the poll also showed Stefanik with a commanding lead in her primary coming up against County Executive of Nassau County, Bruce Blakeman. She leads 48% to 17%. 34% didn't know who they were voting for. We've reached out to the Stefanik campaign. They didn't get us a statement. The Blakeman campaign did, noting his upset victory in his first race for county executive, and then saying he will be the Republican nominee and he will be elected governor. Errol.
Very interesting. On that question of whether or not the wealthier households should be taxed, I went and looked at the number. There are about 70,000 households statewide that make over $1 million a year. It's only about 1%, less than 1% of the total. So I guess in some ways it's not surprising that most people would say, you want to tax somebody else in order to pay for this great service? Go right ahead.
It polled well with independents. You expect Democrats to have that poll well with independents. A very good, substantial number supported those. Even Republicans, it wasn't a total washout. Republicans, of course, very anti-tax, don't want to see taxes raised in general. But even there was a substantial number of Republicans who said they'd be fine with that. It's an interesting cross-section of New Yorkers on how they approve who gets taxed here.
And and it's interesting because although she has a commanding lead, Kathy Hochul can't necessarily sleep well at night, because when there's 20% out there that are undecided, a lot of times the undecided will break in favor of something new and break against the incumbent.
Absolutely. You never want to take this for granted, because that chunk of voters who don't know who they're voting for could make that decision without you really noticing. And all of a sudden you wake up and you are not as far ahead as you were. And interestingly, though, on some issues, Hochul is doing better than a typical Democrat would, especially on the issue of public safety. Democrats typically do better when asked about affordable health care, but even on an issue of public safety where they've really had to convince voters they have their interest on public safety at heart, she's doing pretty well. So she seems to be understanding where her weak points are and where she has to make up for it. For Stefanik, it's basically she's unknown. So she has to go out and make the affirmative case that she will make New York affordable with her, lower taxes policies.
Okay, we shall see. Thanks very much, Stan. It is time for a break. When we come back, we'll take a look at how Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani's team is sifting through more than 70,000 resumes of people who say they want to work for his administration. We'll also talk with a former assemblyman about what the mayor-elect can do for the city's black community. And later, environmental organizations are skeptical of a state plan to repair 5 bridges across the Bronx Expressway. Stay with us.
Every Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost. And that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure. Why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You're done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani is working on beefing up his incoming administration, with aides reportedly sorting through more than 70,000 resumes to fill thousands of vacancies in city government. But there are stumbling blocks when it comes to this massive job search, and our Bernadette Hogan has been taking a closer look. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Errol. So just a bunch of holes that we're trying to fill with, how many people are really applying through the online portal that the Mamdani transition team put up immediately after the election itself? How many people have they hired, if any at all? And how many of those jobs will actually just have to go through the normal civil service system?
They come from every single zip code in New York City and from different walks of life, different sectors. The average age is 28.
With less than 3 weeks until January 1st, Zoran Mamdani's transition team is vetting over 70,000 applicants who want to work in City Hall. Some transition co-chairs are overseeing hiring.
These are individuals who might have deep government experience, but they're also individuals who may not have worked in government but bring a level of talent and creativity and commitment.
Around 100 staffers are working with a $3 million budget, according to a transition spokeswoman. New York One visited their office in a government-owned building across the street from City Hall. Although big jobs like incoming First Deputy Mayor Dean Foulahan and Chief of Staff Al Bisgard Church have been announced, with more on the way, City Hall has thousands of vacancies.
The city has 18,000 vacant positions, 14,000 vacant full-time positions, but a third of them are teachers, cops, firefighters.
I sit on the pension board at the New York City retirement system. We used to see about 300 people retire. We're seeing 5 times as many.
The general online portal is a simple format. Applicants upload a resume, photo, and select specific areas of interest, like criminal justice, housing, or transportation. The transition team is using an applicant tracking software, but declined to share the company's name with New York One. Resumes are then sorted by staff. As of now, no one has yet been hired this way. The campaign also did not share data on whether applicants are more interested in political appointments or civil service roles.
What we're focused on right now, from the 72,000 resumes that we have received, is really filling the senior-most roles across agencies and at City Hall. So we're ready on day one.
But most new faces will be hired through the civil service system with specific qualifications requiring exams and waiting periods. Unions want Mamdani to focus on specific areas.
The city has been under a siege of the attack, a lot of cybersecurity attacks. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to recruit and retain folks.
Already, 179 people currently working in City Hall have been told they won't have jobs on January 1st. Some are union workers and expect to be shifted off the fired list to an agency role.
People are attracted to a message of administration who wants to do well, and then they hit the reality of low salaries in some cases, long hours, the inability to do remote work in some city agencies, which the private sector has managed to do.
Some say the new City Hall has a real opportunity to attract a new generation of city workers, but also reform an archaic and inefficient hiring system.
We need to manage the civil service system much better. Give more tests, call more lists so people can get hired. Ultimately, this is an area for reform that will help the city deliver services and help people on their career paths.
And when I talk to experts who have done this before, or have covered or have seen the other mayoral administrations, they say, you know, in reality, Mamdani has probably about 1,500 positions to play with, from between City Hall and major senior roles in the agencies. The real question is, how fast are they going to be able to be staffed up by January 1st, or at least within the first month of the administration?
Well, it sounds like there's a sort of two paths going on here.
Right.
Senior people, it's a smaller universe of people
Yes.
who have ever managed a gigantic agency, and they probably all halfway know each other. And
Right.
that's one thing. But 70,000 applications that come in online,
Sure.
Either they're using a software program to sort through it, or it's a lottery, right?
Exactly, right. I mean, and also how many of that 70,000 are interested in the larger body of vacant positions, which are your cops, your correctional officers, your teachers. I mean, think about like even social service workers there's some of these jobs that the city has not been able to fill in decades in some cases. There's constant turnover. So
Right.
there's only a few of those political at-will positions that will be available. And at this point, you can already tell who is going to get rewarded from working on the campaign, or, you know, at the end of the day, the more they change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, we shall see. Thanks very much, Bernadette. Also tonight, there are growing calls for a Queens lawmaker to be censured after she called for the expulsion of Muslims from Western nations. Those comments came in a social media post on Sunday that drew immediate widespread condemnation. Our Kelly Mena joins us now with the latest. Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Errol. And that Queens lawmaker is Republican Vicky Paladino, who is coming under serious fire for that Islamic post that she posted over the weekend. It was on Sunday. She posted a lengthy statement to X in the wake of the Bondi Beach attack that read in part, "We need to take very seriously the need to begin the expulsion of Muslims from Western nations, or at the very least, the severe sanction of them within Western borders. The administration needs to begin developing a formal legal framework for the denaturalization process and get it over with before we end up with another 9/11 or worse. Enough is enough." Paladino has since deleted the post, deleting it on Monday after she came under fire and speaking to the incoming presumptive city council speaker. Her comments sparked outrage, including from her fellow colleagues who called the post disgusting and deplorable. Current council speaker Adrienne Adams condemned the post as hateful, anti-Muslim rhetoric that threatens the safety of us all, and called for the Committee on Standards and Ethics to bring disciplinary action against her. Meanwhile, the Progressive Caucus, which is made up of more than a dozen left-leaning council members, has also called on that same committee to investigate the Queens firebrand and censure her in a fast-tracked process. New York One spoke to the incoming council speaker, Julie Menon, about this entire incident, and here's what she told us earlier today.
Councilmember Paladino's comments are reprehensible. We spoke to her about it. We asked her to take the tweet down, which she did. But moving forward, we cannot have that. And it is up to our Standard and Ethics Committee to look at that kind of conduct. We can't have that kind of conduct where we're targeting groups of people. It's unacceptable.
And New York One has reached out to Vicki Paladino about this censuring and investigation. We have not heard back, but she did post earlier today speaking to and replying back to those progressive council members talking about how outraged they were about her comments. However, if the Standards and Ethics Committee were to take up this case right now, they would only be able to open an investigation. They would not be able to continue it as the new council will be sworn in next year, Errol.
Oh, of course, there are other measures that a speaker can take. Like, she doesn't have to be appointed to any committees, for example.
That's right. I'm not sure if that's the route that Julie Menon's going to take. She has to be officially become the council speaker, but it doesn't look very good for Vicki Paladino. We should note, you know, Vicki Paladino has a history of being very opinionated, always towing that line. I was speaking to a member of the council, and when it comes to her and some of the, I guess, complaints that they've received about some of her comments on social media, one thing that they ran into was how much is it a First Amendment right of her ability to speak out, and where does it actually cross that line? There's also been some questions about whether it's actually the council member that's posting to her social media account or it's her son that controls those posts.
Okay, thanks very much, Kelly. It is time for a break now. When we come back, lawmakers in Congress have 48 hours to extend health care subsidies tied to the Affordable Care Act. We'll tell you where the negotiations stand in a report from Washington in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time. And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan. Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood, because our city never stops moving.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories, but first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. A race against the clock is underway in Washington, D.C., with health insurance for millions of Americans riding on the outcome. If members of Congress fail to reach an agreement in the next 48 hours, enhanced subsidies for Affordable Care Act coverage will expire, and that in turn will jack up the cost of premiums for millions of Americans. Washington, D.C. Bureau reporter Shannon Ryan joins me now with the latest about how a New York lawmaker is at the center of the debate. Good evening, Shannon.
Good evening, Errol. Yes, there are a handful of moderates who may have the ability to swing this either way in the House. Now, among them, Republican Mike Lawler of New York. To understand why, it's first easiest to break this debate out into 3 separate factions. So you've got House Democrats. They all back extending these expiring Affordable Care Act subsidies for 3 years, but that's without any changes. any attempts to really compromise with Republicans. Next, you have the House GOP healthcare plan that was just rolled out. It's slated for a vote tomorrow. Now, if passed, it would kill these subsidies. That's something that's a no-go for Democrats and potentially some moderate Republicans, which brings us to our third faction that is a bipartisan faction that Lawler is a part of.
Shannon, what does that bipartisan faction actually want? What are they hoping will get accomplished?
Well, Errol, with both the proposals put forth by Republican and Democratic leadership struggling to win over enough moderates to pass, or at least that's what's assumed at the moment, they're trying to button this up through compromise. So most of these moderates, including Lawler, have signed on to two separate bipartisan proposals that would extend these subsidies, but also address a desire by Republicans to rein in costs. Now, one of the ways that they propose doing that is by using income to determine eligibility. They're putting caps on that, income limits. Now, the moderates do need a certain number of lawmaker signatures to force a vote on those proposals. And right now, both proposals have enough Republican signatures, but do need some more Democratic support. However, most Democrats that we've spoken with tell us that they're waiting for the green light from their leader. That, of course, is Minority Leader of the House, Hakeem Jeffries. He's from Brooklyn. And again, at this time, they're still waiting on him to jump on board. And right now, it looks like he's standing by his partisan proposal.
We have a unified Democratic position. All 214 House Democrats have made clear the best path forward is a straightforward extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And the Republicans on the other side of the aisle are crashing and burning.
Now, Errol, crashing and burning may be a bit of a reach. Moderate Republicans like Lawler have indicated that they would be open to supporting the proposal put forth by House GOP leadership, but that's only if they're able to tack on a vote that would extend these subsidies. Of course, they would be modified. Now, GOP leadership shot that down this morning, which really upset Lawler. Take a listen.
House Republican leadership will not allow a vote. It is idiotic and shameful. And so we have been forced to sign on to two discharge petitions, and yet my Democratic colleagues will not join us, but for those that were at the negotiation table. The Democratic leader will not release his members to sign those two discharge petitions.
Certainly some strong language from Lawler. As you can hear, he's clearly upset with leadership on both sides of the aisle. So, Errol, the question now is, what are moderates like him going to do? Earlier today, he was asked, along with some of these other moderates, if they're considering switching teams, if they may sign on to the Jeffries petition, to which Lawler replied, he's not ruling anything out.
Well, I mean, it sounds like the Speaker of the House is the one who controls the action on the floor. And if he's saying he's not going to allow a bill to go forward, as his member, Michael Lawler, has said, that kind of spells the end of it, right? Barring some extraordinary action?
It seems like it, but that extraordinary action doesn't seem too far out of reach at this point, with people not really knowing which way those moderates are going to swing.
Okay. Thanks very much, Shannon. In a series of stunning interviews with Vanity Fair, the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, is saying that the president has a, quote, alcoholic's personality, even though he does not drink, and that when he sees an opportunity for retribution, quote, he will go for it. Wiles is a former political operative from Florida, and she also reportedly made disparaging comments about Vice President J.D. Vance, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, and billionaire Elon Musk. President Trump is defending Wiles so far and says that she will remain in her job. Spectrum News political reporter Karina Capabianca has more from Washington, D.C.
Vanity Fair reports that White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles gave a series of 11 interviews to writer Chris Whipple this year. Wiles made critical remarks about the president and others in the administration. She's quoted as saying that Attorney General Pam Bondi, quote, completely whiffed in handling the Epstein files, and that Vice President J.D. Vance, quote, has been a conspiracy theorist for a decade. The vice president said Tuesday he hadn't read the Vanity Fair story, but he defended Wiles and laughed off her comments about him.
Sometimes I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true. And by the way, Susie and I have joked in private and in public about that for a long time.
Wiles had been an effective Republican operative in Florida before running the president's 2024 campaign.
She came up in politics as a quiet operative, and she viewed her job as to help her boss accomplish her boss's goals.
But she was anything but quiet in the Vanity Fair piece. She said she had a loose agreement with Trump to stop seeking retribution after 90 days, but that, quote, when there's an opportunity, he will go for it. She also said the president has an alcoholic's personality, even though he does not drink. She explained that he has, quote, a view that there's nothing he can't do. Nothing, zero, nothing. She also called Trump ally Elon Musk an odd duck who was not always rational. Tuesday, Wiles said, quote, the article published early this morning is a disingenuously framed hit piece on me and the finest president, White House staff, and cabinet in history, and that significant context was disregarded. The president later defended Wiles, telling the New York Post on Tuesday he was not upset by her choice of words. He said he agrees he has a, quote, possessive and addictive type personality. Wiles was recently named one of the most powerful women in the world by Forbes. In Washington, Karina Capabianca for Inside City Hall.
It is time for a break. Coming up, I'll talk about the needs of black New Yorkers and how Mayor-elect Mamdani can address them when I'm joined by former State Assemblyman Roger Green. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Bergman.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network. And factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani has vowed to be a leader for all New Yorkers. My next guest wants the mayor-elect to address the specific ongoing displacement of black communities across the 5 boroughs. The city has lost nearly 200,000 black residents from 2020 compared to the year 2000. That's according to the latest census data. It's yet another result of the city's growing affordability crisis, an issue that Mamdani has promised to tackle. The Coalition for a Democratic and Just New York is proposing a bold housing and land use agenda for the Mamdani administration. It's aimed at reversing these trends and prioritizing the needs of black New Yorkers. Joining me now to break it all down is Roger Green, who represented parts of Brooklyn in the State Assembly for 26 years and is now an instructor, I believe, at CUNY at Medgar Evers College. Welcome back to the program. Always good to see you, Professor.
Good to see you, too.
Tell us about this coalition that met to talk about community concerns.
Yeah, I think, well, we really were trying to build on the history of what occurred when David Dinkins was running for office, which was to create a public policy framework in anticipation of his election that would be enacted in terms of local law. And so in this particular case, I think given the crisis that we've seen in New York City, which is driven by economic polarization, which is the driver of an unaffordable city, we felt it was imperative that we present a public policy framework to Mamdani. And of course, one of the anchors of that was to address what I'm hearing from everyone, which is the housing crisis that's currently occurring, which I think, which is basically hollowed out many traditional African-American or African diasporic communities and really represents a form, I think, of pervasive resegregation in many ways.
Okay. Now, I want to just point out that what you're doing by meeting is something that I've seen you do for decades now, and it harkens back actually to the Black Convention movement. You can go all the way back to the 1840s, and there were Black folks sort of like meeting, convening, trying to figure out policy frameworks is what we would call it now, but trying to figure out what do we do next, what happens next. As you all decided to, I looked at your op-ed in Our Time Press where you laid out some of what your conclusions were, and they almost all went to economic concerns, home ownership in particular. Why that?
Yeah, because I think that in order to address this crisis, you also have to deal with the question of generational wealth. How do you secure that? And historically in the United States, one of the abilities to do that is home ownership. And so we think that the creating and enacting local laws that would enhance limited equity co-ops, similar to the traditional Mitchell-Lama type of co-ops and others, would be a step in the right direction. Sometimes those types of initiatives also create startup homes, creating an opportunity for generational wealth for new homeowners. And I think one of the crises that we're facing, when you talk about the 200,000 plus, particularly African Americans or African diasporic people who have left New York City, many of them are young folks who just can't afford to live in our cities at this time.
You and some of your cohorts, who I've been covering now for decades, starting in the 1980s, you put so much money into these communities. The rebuilding of the Franklin Avenue shuttle, which I know cut across your old district.
Yes.
The money that you put into Medgar Evers College, which is in the heart of your district. The amount of economic development money, all of that stuff. It kind of made the area that much more attractive, right? So
absolutely.
To a certain extent, the pressures that we're seeing that we're now calling unaffordability are things that, in some ways are a sign of progress.
Yeah, they were. But one of the things that we didn't deal with, I think, and I remember when you, for instance, helped found the credit union. That was in part because there was a concern about the transmission of intergenerational racial inequality. It went back to the formulation of redlining and other issues like that. And so I think, we have invested in a lot of types of institutions that are important and other programs, but at this point in time, I think it's necessary for us to really look at how do you create generational wealth so that we can sustain communities in central Brooklyn and other parts of the city.
You know the political game as well as anybody, and the math is really somewhat unforgiving, right? If you want to talk about home ownership in a city where 3/4 are renters, somebody will win like a Zoran Mamdani by promising a rent freeze. Someone trying to talk about home ownership is, by definition going to be talking to a relatively small group and won't necessarily be able to build the political support for some of the policies you're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. But one of the things, I think a wise man once said, I think it was Albert Einstein, he said, logic gets you from point A to Z, but imagination gets you everywhere. We need a radical imagination in the context of how we're formulating and enacting, adopting legislation, particularly as it relates to housing. This type of crisis necessitates that we not get bogged down in what Dr. King used to call gradualism. And, you know, we need a really radical imagination to address these issues. So community land trusts, I think, are going to be important, limited equity co-ops, and others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you got any reaction from the Mamdani camp? I know there's a lot of turmoil going on with the transition.
Yeah, we requested a meeting, and we anticipate that we're going to have a meeting in the near future. And at that point, we're going to have a serious discussion about this and other issues that we define as a form of economic democracy for the constituents in our community.
In central Brooklyn, Clinton Hill in particular, I think gave him the biggest majorities anywhere in the city, even his home district didn't
absolutely
do as much for him.
Clinton Hills, where I live in Fort Greene, absolutely close to 81% of the vote came out for him, which was the highest of any neighborhood in the city. And I think we need to, focus on that. Now, a lot of that came from young folks, even young black folks. 80% of black folks below the age of 40 came out and voted for him. And that's why I think it's imperative that we create a city that's affordable and livable for them.
Okay, a lot of good stuff in this. I recommend that people take a look at it. It's in Our Time Press on their website, and we'll continue to have this conversation after January 1st. Thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, the MTA is installing more spikes and paddles on turnstiles, which they say is working to reduce fare evasion. We'll bring you those details in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
In Focus with Cheryl Wills, a weekly show discussing decisions and potential solutions for issues making an impact in your community and your city. If it's important to New Yorkers, then it's being talked about here. In Focus with Cheryl Wills, Sunday mornings at 10:30 on New York One.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything. Movies, series, sports, reality, news.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
And even more of your favorites with live TV. Stream across your devices and enjoy anywhere.
See you later.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Over the next month, almost every subway station in the city will have turnstiles with paddles and spikes that are meant to stop people from jumping over the turnstile. The MTA says that since equipping some turnstiles with these features, fare evasion has decreased significantly. They will be installed in more than 100 additional stations across the system. New York One's Alyssa Balicelli has the details in this report.
Currently
at more than 325 subway stations across the city, the turnstiles look like this. Tall metal plates with spikes in the top separating each gate and paddles fixed to all 3 of the turnstile bars. The MTA says this design has reduced fare evasion at those stations by 60%.
Some members of the public might think these interventions just look funny. But the truth of the matter is these modifications work.
The transit agency says because of the effectiveness of this design, another roughly 130 stations will be outfitted with the spikes and paddles by the end of January. Though some commuters say some people are still figuring out how to skip out on the fare.
They just crawl under them or they just hold onto the wall. It doesn't really do anything.
They're always going to jump. They go under or they go over. The spikes make no difference.
There are shorter people who just kind of so right under. So what are we going to see, like spikes on the ground next? Like, I don't know.
The design is relatively affordable. The MTA says it plans on spending $7.3 million to make the changes. That is a fraction of the $1.1 billion budgeted over the next 5 years to install entirely new and more modern fare gates at 150 stations. The agency is piloting fare gates from 4 companies at 20 stations this year. They feature double doors and have been used in other cities around the world with success limiting fare evasion.
Whatever they can do, I don't know, I think they need to make it where to the ground a little lower somehow, because everybody just slides right under, like European style tollways and stuff, so we'll see how that goes.
For the past several years, the MTA has been trying a number of different strategies and initiatives to curb fare evasion, as it has been a growing problem for the agency. This year alone, the MTA says it estimates $400 million will be lost to subway fare evasion. That is up from $285 million just 3 years ago. And that number doesn't even include the problem of fare evasion that they have on city buses. In Manhattan, Alyssa Palicelli, New York 1.
It is time for a break. Coming up, we will talk with an environmental expert about a state plan to repair 5 bridges across the Bronx Expressway. Local activists are saying that the plan will actually expand the highway. Stay with us.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it's saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The State Department of Transportation is facing criticism over a plan to repair 5 bridges across the Bronx Expressway. Community advocates say that the bridge repairs are being used to expand the highway that has historically been linked to increased respiratory illness in the Bronx due to high traffic volume. The DOT has backed away from some of its expansion plans after local outcry, but community and environmental organizations say the state is not doing enough to address their concerns. My next guest is Siddhartha Sanchez. He's the executive director of the Bronx River Alliance, an environmental protection organization. Welcome to the program. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
I looked at the plans that the DOT says, and there's a line early on. It says the project is not an expansion of the highway. Is that not true? Is that not accurate?
Well, the truth is that when you look at the actual footprint of the highway, you know, all of the proposals that the state has put out expand the footprint. And we're very intimately connected to that footprint because the highway goes over the park that we're headquartered in and over the river that we care for.
Do we all agree that the bridges that were built between 1947 and 1958 are probably in need of repair or replacement?
100%. That's the thing I would say most of all. We are not against rebuilding the Cross Bronx. We see its condition, we understand it's crumbling, and we understand that it's a critical piece of infrastructure.
What is the role of the Bronx River Alliance in this kind of a conversation? So 150,000 cars or vehicles that are moving through there every day, still an environmental hazard. It's a past tragedy. I don't know the extent to which you're trying to sort of correct that after the fact, but what is your role in this conversation?
Yeah, I would say our role is really to represent the watershed communities that are alongside the river. We work to care for the river and the green spaces along the river, and that involves really the watershed communities that have been a part of reclaiming this natural resource. And the Cross Bronx has a huge impact on the community nearby. Over 62,000 people live right next to the corridor.
The Bronx River itself, by the way, I mean, you know, just salute to you and all of your predecessors and everybody in that community that has brought this back. Those of us who remember when there were just nothing but submerged cars and it was a dangerous place, you restored access to the waterfront, got substantial cleanup going. Almost all of it was community-led, at least initially. And now, you know, people are kayaking out there, which I never thought I would see. How does the DOT's plans support or perhaps endanger the work that you all have done over the years?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and thank you for giving us a space to talk about it. I think the reality of it is that the expansion of the Cross Bronx increases stormwater in the river at a real basic level. So water quality is affected, the programs that we run in and around the river are affected, and the air quality, of course. Any type of capacity increase or, you know, the highway has a huge impact on air quality. As you mentioned, respiratory rates and asthma rates are some of the worst in the state.
Right. There was some concern that the volume would actually get higher as a result of congestion pricing, which was intended to sort of stop a certain amount of traffic from cutting through the middle of Midtown or lower Manhattan. Has that happened? Have you seen any numbers so far? We've had congestion pricing for about a year so far.
I haven't seen the numbers. I've seen the day-to-day parking lot that is the Cross Bronx, yes, and that most folks identify as the Cross Bronx. And I think, you know, part of what we've been really pushing and advocating for is how do we reduce that traffic for the community's sake, for the business community's sake, and really for the folks that are using that expressway so that it actually functions.
What's the answer to that?
I think we're open to many ideas. At a real basic level, I think we need time to study the plans that the state has put forth. You know, the state removed some of the most controversial and noxious proposals that they had laid out. A second parallel highway to the Cross Bronx was taken off of the table back in October, but they're still looking to expand the highway, and they haven't really talked about reducing traffic. So we have different ideas that we've been exploring, but we're really looking for time to consider other options.
Has Governor Kathy Hochul been an ally in this fight?
Well, what I would say is that the state has really come to the table as a partner, particularly, you know, post-October. They've expressed, you know, genuine desire to work with community, to see alternatives and to see what the community wants to see. The challenge is that the comment period for the process that they're going through right now the comment period for the environmental assessment is very short, and it's through the holidays. So we're really just asking for a few more weeks to involve as many stakeholders as possible, engineers, the folks that know about highway design, and can come up with the best possible solution for future generations.
And the environmental assessment, does it include things like the asthma rate in the immediate vicinity, the particulate pollution, and how it's affecting young people in particular, all of that?
I truly hope it does. We've only had a couple weeks to look at it. It's over 5,000 pages. You know, it's one of those things that we understand is embedded in there, but we don't know how they're tracking and measuring the impact. I know that they're looking at receptors, not necessarily quantitative data. And so, you know, I think those are projections really based on modeling.
I saw some proposals or some suggestions that perhaps turning it into a covered roadway, in effect a tunnel, that could capture a lot of the pollution and just kind of take it off the table. Sounded kind of expensive, but is that a real possibility?
Yeah, I think, you know, for several years now, community along the Cross Bronx has been, you know, gathering together to talk about how do we cap the Cross Bronx? How do we filter the air coming off the Cross Bronx? How do we put parks on top of the Cross Bronx? And I think, you know, those are some of the ideas that you're referencing. I think the reality is that that is the future, I think, of this type of infrastructure in communities that have bared the impact of that infrastructure for decades.
Did you hear anything from the mayor-elect about what the next administration might do as far as their part of this conversation?
Well, what I understand is that the mayor-elect has really prioritized affordability and livability of New York City for the communities like ours, like communities that are alongside the Cross Bronx. We're working closely with the administration to make sure that the community's concerns around this project are raised and clear, and hopefully partnering with the administration on solutions.
Is there a mass transit solution that would substantially reduce some of the traffic on the Cross Bronx?
That has been something that has come up, not just looking at, you know, avenues like East Tremont Avenue and how do you create, you know, rapid bus transit along East Tremont, but also how do you put buses on the Cross Bronx? How do we look at other models across the world where that's, you know, more normal?
Yeah, dedicated bus lane. They do it on the Gowanus and some of the other similar highways. Okay, well, we're going to continue to watch this, and we'll wish you the best of luck. Thanks so much for coming by, and happy holidays to you. That is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You done with the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything.
Hey, brother. Be careful.
Movies.
I've got this condition where I don't feel pain.
You're a superhero.
No.
Series.
There was another murder in the building.
Sports. Reality.
Here's to a summer you'll never forget.
News.
Here's a look at today's top story.
Exclusive originals.
You await your orders.
Even more of your favorites with live TV.
Welcome into First Take.
Stream across your devices and watch anywhere. At home or out and about. It's the entertainment experience you've been waiting for. Streaming apps included at no extra cost.
Just got that, pal. Get a good look.
With live TV and on demand. All together, all in one place for you to enjoy.
It's whatever kind of adventure we want it to be.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
On Stage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
New Year's Eve is on New York One.
And we've got a spot for you in the center of the city's biggest